What is up? What is up, YouTube? How y'all doing? Uncle Mike still in the Philippines, man. Chilling like a villain, but I'm always willing. Check this out, man. God dang, this save Chris Young. Inside the final 24 hours of Christopher Young, and plus the last meal, plus last words. Texas death row inmate. I don't know why every time the camera come on the younger generation, they start doing the cow, 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 cow. Middle finger, F the police. Like I'm allergic to jail, but they ain't allergic to jail apparently. This man is on death row. How in the world would you want to even get anywhere close to living this type of life? What did you do to get on death row? I don't know anything about his situation, but I'm hoping that some younger generation can hear Uncle Mike's voice and say, I want to change my life. I want to get real money in my pocket. I want a real job. I want to be a real successful YouTuber. We got a YouTube course, by the way. I want to do music. I want to live life right. Live life correctly is helping people. That's it. It's that simple. Go out and try to find somebody to help, and then God will bless you with more. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell, man. Let's check this bad boy.
I think that if I wouldn't have never came to death row, I wouldn't be the individual I am today. I wouldn't be as mature. I wouldn't be able to explain to my daughter's life, like the appreciation of it, because I didn't have any.
Daughters? You have daughters? And you in jail? That is not even a good combination right there, bruh.
I wouldn't be able to explain to my daughter's life, like the appreciation of it, because I didn't have any appreciation for life. I wouldn't be able to explain to them that there's a world out there and not just a city, you know. I wouldn't have been able to do any of that without death row. I don't think I would have gotten over my anger. I would probably be in prison anyway. I would probably be dead. And so I really think that the chances were high I would be dead because of the gang activity I was into. And so, yeah, I look at death row as saving my life.
Christopher Young was an angry 21-year-old when he shot and killed store owner Hasmukh Patel. But on death row, he transformed, becoming a model inmate who sought peace and pleaded for clemency. By then, it was too late. His countdown had already begun. Welcome to Deadline Files. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support means a great deal, and it keeps these important stories alive. On November 21st, 2004, a single act of violence would tear apart two families forever. But what happened next, what the victim's own son would do, would challenge everything we think we know about justice, forgiveness, and the death penalty in America. This is the story you won't see coming. A story where the victim's family becomes the killer's greatest advocate. Where forgiveness meets the unforgiving machinery of death row. And where a son's love for his murdered father leads him to fight for the life of his father's killer. Today, we're counting down the final hours of Christopher Young, a man who committed an unthinkable crime, but whose execution would divide even those he hurt most. So buckle in, because this story will make you question everything you believe about justice. It was 7:23 a.m. on a quiet Sunday morning in San Antonio, Texas. November 21st, 2004. Most people were sleeping in. Some were getting ready for church. Others were brewing their first cup of coffee, planning a lazy day with family. But in one apartment on the south side of town, 24-year-old Daphne Edwards was about to experience a nightmare that would haunt her forever. And just miles away, 55-year-old Hasmukh Hash Patel was unlocking the doors to his small convenience store, Sunshine Food Mart, completely unaware that he had less than 3 hours to live. The man who would connect these two innocent lives in violence. 21-year-old Christopher Young, and he was already spiraling out of control. Let me paint you a picture of Christopher Young that morning. He wasn't some criminal mastermind. He wasn't a seasoned killer. He was a young man drowning in his own demons, drugs, alcohol, and a rage he couldn't control. By 7:30 a.m., Young had already consumed nearly 24 beers and enough cocaine to fuel his violent impulses. His judgment was gone. His humanity was slipping away. That's when he spotted Daphne Edwards' apartment. Young didn't know her. She wasn't a target. She was just there. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong Sunday morning. He forced his way in. Revolver in hand, he demanded money. All she had was $28. $28. But money wasn't enough anymore. Young's violence escalated. He fired a warning shot into her floor, the sound echoing through her small apartment like thunder. Then came something worse. Something I won't describe in detail, but something that would traumatize Daphne for the rest of her life. After sexually assaulting her, Young dragged her to her own car, a red Mazda Protege. He was taking her somewhere. We'll never know where, because Daphne Edwards did something that saved her life. When Young stepped out to switch from passenger to driver, Daphne saw her only chance. She bolted. She ran like her life depended on it, because it did. Young could have chased her, could have shot her, but instead he made a different choice. He got behind the wheel of her stolen car and drove away. Daphne Edwards was safe. But Christopher Young's violence wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 8 minutes. That's how long it took Christopher Young to drive from Daphne Edwards' apartment to Sunshine Food Mart. 8 minutes that sealed two more fates. Hasmukh Patel, everyone called him Hash, had been living the American dream the hard way. He'd immigrated to the United States with nothing but hope and determination. He worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, building his small convenience store into something that could support his family. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful. He was just a good man, trying to make an honest living in a new country. The surveillance cameras were rolling when Christopher Young walked through those doors at 8:47 a.m. And what they captured next, what they captured was the moment everything changed forever. Young walked in calm, almost casual. He browsed for a moment, like any other customer might on a Sunday morning. But Hash Patel, working alone behind the counter, probably sensed something was wrong. Maybe it was Young's demeanor. Maybe it was instinct. We'll never know what went through Hash's mind in those final moments. What we do know is this. Christopher Young moved behind the counter. He drew his weapon, and he spoke 5 words that would be Hash Patel's death sentence. Give up the money. I'm not playing. Hash moved toward the register. He was complying. He was going to give Young whatever he wanted. That's when the first shot rang out. Bang. Hash stumbled but stayed on his feet. In that split second, wounded, terrified, dying, he managed to do something heroic. He hit the store's alarm button, a desperate signal to the outside world that something terrible was happening. But Christopher Young wasn't finished. Bang. The second shot dropped Hash Patel to the floor. Young could have taken the money then, could have grabbed whatever cash was in the register and fled. But something had snapped inside him. He chased the wounded shopkeeper as Hash tried desperately to crawl to safety. Within seconds, it was over. Hasmukh Patel, husband, father, immigrant, dreamer, lay motionless on the floor of his own store. Christopher Young tucked his weapon under his shirt. He looked around the store one final time. and then he walked out. He didn't take a single dollar. A good man was dead. For nothing. But someone was watching. In the parking lot, a customer had seen the red Mazda Protege pull up, had watched a young man walk into the store, had heard the gunshots, had seen the same man walk out, calm as could be. Most importantly, this witness had memorized part of the license plate. Just one letter, but it would be enough. W. That single letter would seal Christopher Young's fate. By noon that same day, police had traced the stolen red Mazda back to Daphne Edwards. Her assault that morning wasn't random anymore. It was connected to a murder. When they found Christopher Young, he didn't run, didn't resist. The fight had gone out of him as quickly as it had come. The evidence was overwhelming. The surveillance tape, the eyewitness testimony, the stolen car, the ballistic evidence. Christopher Young, 21 years old, was charged with capital murder. But his story, and the story of the Patel family, was just beginning. By the time Christopher Young's case went to trial in 2006, the prosecution had built what seemed like an unshakable case. The surveillance footage was crystal clear. Frame by frame, jurors watched a young man walk into a store, move behind the counter, draw a weapon, and commit murder in cold blood. They heard his voice on the tape. Give up the money. I'm not playing. They heard the gunshots. They saw Hash Patel collapse. They watched Young walk out without taking a dime. The state didn't just want a guilty verdict. They wanted death. The prosecution painted Christopher Young as more than just a killer. They said he was a continuing threat to society, a man with gang ties, a history of violence, and no capacity for redemption. If you spare this man's life, they told the jury, he will kill again. But Young's defense team fought back with a different story. They didn't deny Young pulled the trigger. They couldn't. It was right there on tape. But they argued this wasn't a calculated murder. This was a man so intoxicated on alcohol and drugs that he couldn't form intent to kill. 24 beers and cocaine, they said. Young was so impaired he didn't even know what he was doing. The jury didn't buy it. After just 3 hours of deliberation, they returned with their verdict. Guilty of capital murder. But that was just the beginning. Now came the question that would haunt everyone involved. Should Christopher Young live or die? In Texas, a capital murder conviction doesn't automatically mean death. The jury has to decide two things. First, is the defendant likely to commit future acts of violence? Second, are there mitigating factors that justify life in prison instead of execution? The prosecution pulled out all the stops. They presented evidence of Young's violent behavior in jail while awaiting trial. They argued he was a predator who would never change. The defense tried to humanize him. They talked about his troubled childhood, his struggles with addiction, and his potential for redemption. It didn't work. The jury found that Christopher Young posed a continuing threat to society. They found no mitigating factors strong enough to save his life. The sentence, death by lethal injection. For the Patel family, justice had been served. The man who killed their patriarch would pay with his own life. But then something extraordinary happened. Something no one saw coming. Meet Mitesh Patel, Hash Patel's son. A young man who had lost his father to senseless violence, who had watched his family torn apart by grief, who had sat through every day of Christopher Young's trial, staring at the man who killed his dad. In most cases, victims' families want the...
Man, he done tried to save this guy. He probably did everything he could to try to save the guy. Oh my God, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. Let's keep going.
Death penalty. They want closure. They want the ultimate punishment for the ultimate crime. But Mitesh Patel was different. After Christopher Young was sentenced to death, Mitesh stepped forward with an announcement that shocked everyone. He forgave Christopher Young, and he was going to fight to save the killer's life. Executing Christopher Young won't bring my father back, Mitesh said. Forgiveness means more than vengeance. This wasn't a one-time statement. This was a crusade. Mitesh wrote letters to governors, judges, and parole boards. He gave interviews to newspapers and TV stations. He stood before officials and pleaded for mercy, not for himself, but for the man who had destroyed his family. Can you imagine that? The victim's son becoming the killer's greatest advocate? For 12 years, Christopher Young sat on death row while Mitesh Patel fought to save him. Young's legal team filed appeal after appeal. They argued the jury selection was unfair. They claimed racial bias had excluded jurors who might have chosen life over death. But appeal after appeal was denied. Meanwhile, Mitesh continued his campaign. He organized rallies. He met with religious leaders. He did everything he could to convince the state of Texas that executing Christopher Young was wrong. In July 2018, Young's execution date was set, July 17th. Days before the execution, the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles held a hearing on clemency. Mitesh was there. So were other family members who supported his position. They begged for mercy. The board's vote was unanimous, 7-0 against clemency. Young's lawyers made...
Wow. They wasn't hearing this, man. 7-0, not one person. Oh my gracious, not one person wanted to save the man's life. But he would have been life in prison. Oh my gracious, that's
his
crazy.
Position. They begged for mercy. The board's vote was unanimous, 7-0 against clemency. Young's lawyers made one final appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. Denied. Despite everything. Despite the victim's family pleading for mercy. The machinery of death row ground forward. Christopher Young's execution would proceed as scheduled.
I really haven't ever had a chance to really apologize to my family either. Because although I thought I was being protective of them, I really hurt them too. And so I want to apologize to them too. None of that was intentional. Of course, I had numerous family members tell me to sit my ass down somewhere and didn't listen to them. And I should have. But I think they'll appreciate who I am now. And that's what I really want to show people, how a person can change, can grow up and mature. And so although I do apologize for putting them through this stress, I hope they can appreciate where I am now. You know, kids too. My kids too. Because,
that's messed
up, they didn't want that father 14 years ago. They didn't want that father. You know, they probably wouldn't have that father anymore. And so, yeah, I want them to appreciate that. Yeah.
One of the things that I would like to say to the people that you got to realize as a kid, you got to realize this early, that you're going to go through some changes. You're going to like cartoons, then one day you ain't going to like cartoons. Ride bicycles outside, run outside, play, go out to the clubs every Friday, Saturday. You a club hopper. I can't stand going out to the club now. They see, one day you're going to live for Friday and Saturday, and now I live for just getting off work and go home, watch TV and lay in the bed. That's the best thing in the world. That's all I want to do. Go eat real good, go home, lay in the bed. That's it. He was 21. See, people think when you're 21, you're grown. Nope. You're not grown. That's what, the soon as you notice that, it's too late now. Don't notice it when it's too late after you done did so many stupid things that now you're in behind bars. Don't do it that way.
July 17th, 2018.
2018.
The sun rose over Huntsville, Texas, and Christopher Young woke up knowing he would not see it set. 14 years had passed since he walked into Sunshine Food Mart. 14 years since he destroyed 2 families with 2 bullets. 14 years since he threw his own life away in a moment of drug-fueled violence. Death row inmates used to be able to request any last meal they wanted. Lobster, steak, whatever their heart desired. But Texas changed that policy after some inmates made ridiculous requests just to cause trouble. So Christopher Young's final meal was standard prison fare. Chicken patties, mashed potatoes with brown gravy, pinto beans, mixed vegetables, cornbread, and tea. Nothing special. Just another meal before death. Young spent his final hours meeting with ministers and rabbis who had supported him during his time in prison. Men of faith who prayed with him as the clock ticked towards 6 p.m. Outside the Huntsville unit, 2 groups of protesters had gathered. Death penalty supporters on one side, abolitionists on the other. And standing with the abolitionists, holding signs asking for mercy, were members of the Patel family, the victim's family, protesting the execution of their loved one's killer. At 6:13 p.m., Christopher Young was led into the death chamber. He was strapped to a gurney. Intravenous lines were inserted into his arms. Through the glass windows, witnesses watched in silence. In the victim's family section sat members of the Patel family, including Mitesh, the son who had fought so hard to save the man who killed his father. When asked for his final words, Christopher Young spoke slowly and clearly. "I want to make sure the Patel family knows I love them like they love me. Make sure the kids in the world keep striving for the best. Don't fall victim to this system. I want to tell my family I love y'all. I truly mean that. I want to thank all of the ministers and rabbis who came to see me." That's it. At 6:13 p.m., the lethal dose of pentobarbital began to flow through the intravenous lines. Christopher Young closed his eyes. At 6:25 p.m., he was pronounced dead. Outside the prison, there was no celebration. Anti-death penalty activists stood shoulder to shoulder with members of the Patel family, united not in joy, but in grief. They had lost. The state of Texas had spoken. In the end, forgiveness held no power against the machinery of death. Family members of the victim, the Patel family, gave a powerful written statement. The man that was executed today by the state of Texas was not the same man that killed Husmukh Patel. Christopher was a father to his daughters, and a man who desired to break the chain of gang violence through mentorship. Their words painted a picture not of the reckless 21-year-old who committed the crime in 2004, but of the man Christopher Young had become after more than a decade behind bars, a man seeking redemption, whose life ended despite the forgiveness of those he had once harmed. Today, Christopher Young is gone, but his case lives on as one of the most unusual in death penalty history. Here was a man who committed an undeniably heinous crime, who killed an innocent shopkeeper for no reason, who deserved punishment. But here also was a victim's family who found the strength to forgive, who believed that mercy was more powerful than vengeance, who fought harder than anyone to save their loved one's killer. It raises uncomfortable questions about our justice system. Should the wishes of victims' families matter in death penalty cases? If they do matter, why did Texas ignore the Patel family's pleas for mercy? Is justice about punishment, or is it about something deeper? Can a person who commits the worst possible crime still deserve a chance at redemption? And maybe the biggest question of all, what kind of person does it take to forgive the unforgivable? The case of Christopher Young doesn't have easy answers. It doesn't fit neatly into our ideas about right and wrong, guilt and innocence, justice and mercy. What it does have is a lesson about the power of forgiveness and the limits of that power in a system built on punishment. Mitesh Patel showed us something extraordinary, that even in the face of unimaginable loss, love can triumph over hate. That even when someone takes everything from you, you can choose to give them something in return. But the state of Texas showed us something else, that individual acts of grace, no matter how powerful, sometimes can't stop the machinery of death. Christopher Young paid the ultimate price for his crimes. But his story, and the story of the family that forgave him, will live on as a testament to both the worst and the best of human nature. So I'll leave you with a question that haunts this case. Should the wishes of a victim's family matter in deciding life or death? Tell me what you think in the comments. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it challenged your assumptions about justice and mercy, then hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, because we'll be back next week with another story from death row, another countdown to the final moment, another case that will make you question everything you thought you knew about crime and punishment in America.
You know, with all that being said, man, I have to say that death row is all a brother knows. I can't imagine how somebody can glorify being in jail. I can't imagine how somebody would glorify being on death row or whatever. Like I'm very violent, and that makes the kids in the music and hip hop and stuff, that makes the kids want to be violent and stuff, which means they go to jail. I don't think they really understand. I don't think they really got a clear understanding of jail and freedom. They don't understand how precious freedom is. That's what the problem is. You get on them drugs and freedom comes with all this glorified stuff thrown in your face. Shiny cars, shiny motorcycles. You sitting over here broke. Get a job and stay on the job 8 hours, work 10 hours, overtime, all this stuff. But you got all this shine, jewelry, new tennis shoes, the Timberland boots, haircuts, and all this stuff is being thrown in your face, diamonds and all this stuff up and down your, come on, man. You have to fight through all that stuff, man. That's all smoke and mirrors. And you run out and try to rob or do something negative to get the smoke and mirrors. Then you end up in the system. Wishing you never made those mistakes. Hey, I'm gonna get on up out of here. Y'all take it light, take it slow. Tell them Uncle Mike told you so. Peace out.